Coming to you live from the Bridget Mabandla Justice College, I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo, and as we do at this time every week, I'm giving you a roundup of the proceedings here at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. And boy, oh boy, it's been quite the week. Just when we thought that we'd seen the last of the drama from one of Sulaiman Karim's lawyers, unprecedented scenes where we saw legal counsel facing off and lashing out at each other, seemingly over seating arrangements. And just when we thought that was enough, we also heard from suspended SAPS head of organized crime, Richard Shabiri, who lied under oath. One thing is clear, that both these men had an insane amount of fear in mentioning certain people's names. Plus, the presidency around the corner here at the Union Buildings has extended the tenure of this inquiry. But what does this mean for people like Senzo Mchunu and the benefits that they still get while we continue to hear this drama unfold? Well, I'll have more on that in a moment. Let's just get straight into it. And so after spending a greater portion of Friday listening to an in-camera application from ANC-linked businessman Sulaiman Karim's lawyers, the first order of business on Monday was to get a ruling on this matter. And through its chairperson, Mbuyiseli Madlanga, this plea was declined, which meant that everything that Karim would have to say would be done in an open session. And so after this judgment was handed down, Madlanga called for an adjournment in order to bring the witness into the room. And it was at this particular point in time where we saw unprecedented scenes in which, believe it or not, lawyers charging at the Commission Secretary, Dr. Nolita Vuguza, over seating arrangements. There's a lot of people that have come with advocates, Camille Premed for Sulaiman Karim, and you see there's a bit of a tiff. As you can see, there's a bit of tension, and there's an exchange between Camille Premed and the secretary, Dr. Nolita Vuguza. As you can see, tempers flaring a bit, and Premed saying there is a way with which we've been treated with courtesy. Let's see if you're going to be able to hear.
Your behavior from launch and what is all the evidence we need for that. Thank you very much. Said I didn't speak. Yeah, and they got you too, actually. So am I. Because remember that you exercise power on behalf of the Republic, not on behalf of yourselves.
This has been some of what we've seen this morning. In fact, earlier on, it was between Chief Evidence Leader Matthew Chaskilson and advocates Rafik Bana when they had to move and had to be moved to the left. That was very quick, but this seems to be going on between Dr. Nolita Vuguza, who is the Commission Secretary, and advocate Camille Premed. So tempers are flaring, and she's now walking out. So yeah, this is what's been taking place this morning. Okay, so after apologies were exchanged and proceedings did eventually get underway, Karim's lawyers brought another complaint about what they believed was the deliberate drip feeding of documents to their team, which they claimed was aimed at ambushing them. Now, papers were sent to them on Friday, new papers that is, but Karim's lawyers said it appears that there's an attempt to introduce matters that moved beyond the terms of reference of this inquiry.
It's a question of fairness, it's a question of why these documents are not produced, and it's a question of in our view, the evidence leaders trying to ambush Mr. Karim by producing documents at a very late stage, which he hasn't had a full and proper opportunity to consult on. There's no reason we should be put through this in the holy month to have to expect to consult with a witness after hours when people are taken up by the breaking of the fast, by prayers and other such matters.
But Chief Evidence Leader Matthew Chaskelson retorted that it was only 6 new documents that had been sent to Karim's lawyers, and part of their protestation, according to Chaskelson, was because they simply did not want to mention the name of one Hangwani Morgan Maumela.
Those 6 pages concern issues relating to Mr. Morgan Maumela. Mr. Karim and his legal team know that issues relating to Morgan Maumela are directly are going to be traversed in this matter. They were listed both in the notice in terms of Regulation 10.6, requesting the statement, and in the summons. For reasons which I don't know and which hopefully Mr. Karim will explain, despite being instructed to issue a statement concerning the nature and extent of his relationship with Mr. Morgan Maumela, he declined to do so. He says nothing about Mr. Morgan Maumela. He clearly doesn't want to speak about Mr. Morgan Maumela. Those 6 pages raise important issues relating to Mr. Morgan Maumela. He's chosen not to engage with them. The attitude from the Commission side is he must, and he must answer whether he would prefer not to, whether or not he would prefer to stay silent in that regard.
And so after Sulaiman Karim's lawyers indicated the possibility of bringing a postponement application, proceedings got underway in earnest, and finally a moment of reckoning where Sulaiman Karim would finally actually have his day at the Commission of Inquiry. And things kicked off with a discussion around his relationship with Vusumuzi Ikat Madala and how the pair came to know each other, in particular when it comes to that Medicare 24 tender. And this is where we saw that the Northwest businessman sharing how he did not know Madala before 2024 until he received a call from Madala, who had wanted a 10 million rand loan for startup issues and cash flow at the start of this particular contract.
Vusi and I agreed that if I advanced the 10 million, I would be paid an additional amount of 10 million over a 3-year contract period. The repayment would be made at an equivalent of 10% of all payments received until the amount of 20 million was going to be paid. In terms of our agreement, we then set out the payment structure, which is attached. After July 2024, I would call Vusi from time to time and ask him whether he had received a signed SLA from SAPS and when can I expect a copy of this agreement between Medcare and SAPS, as we all had an agreement confirming our agreement. Because we had an agreement which was not signed, we agreed that we'll sign the agreement once the SLA was signed by SAPS. He experienced some delays in obtaining the SLA from SAPS, but there was no cause for concern as Med24 had already commenced in rendering services to them. This seemed quite plausible to me, as in my experience, formal contracts often lag behind and before implementing the contract.
And so Karim says because he didn't know Madala personally, he then reached out to his longtime friend, one Brown Mahi, whom he believed to be very well connected, to check in on whether or not this Medicare 24 tender was legit.
Would then, to verify this, contact Brown, for example, inquire whether payments were being made under the tender. Brown would always revert back to me based on what he allegedly knew. And also, I had no way of how Brown was verifying this. I need to place that on record. During these exchanges, Brown confirmed that the tender was still in operation and that payments were in progress. In February 2025, payments started trickling in. By mid-March 2025, I received net payment of 1.75 million, which was paid into the Mies Investments business account. Before any other payments could be received unexpectedly in March, Vusi sent me a message regarding the cancellation of Medcare 24's contract. I informed Brown of what Vusi informed me and requested him to find out what was happening. Brown then agreed to inquire. Brown then later sent me a message stating that he had spoken to the minister. Brown advised me that in order to keep Vusi, I should inform Vusi that I have a good and direct relationship with the minister and his office. I advised Brown that this was a joke because I had no relationship with either the minister or his office. Brown's reasoning was that I should make Vusi believe that I have a relationship with the minister's office and that he would communicate directly with the minister's offices if, when, and required. Brown was clear that this was required and calculated to make Vusi believe that my involvement and my assistance with the minister and his office would be crucial, and therefore Vusi would therefore need me to pay me my money, or would need to pay me my money. In truth, I did not have any relationship with the minister.
And so here's why Suleiman Karim trusted Brown Mahi so much. And by the way, this is over and above them being homeboys coming from the Northwest and knowing each other for more than a decade.
Yes, I believed that Brown had the influence at that time. On many occasions in the Northwest, especially in the structures of the ANC, Brown would lead the campaigns. He led one of the campaigns in 2017. It was a CR campaign. Brown led it. Again in 2022, he was leading that campaign. So based on how I know him, I believed he had these contacts, and I was convinced that he had those contacts at that time.
And so Karim pushed quite hard to create a distance from an impression that he had contacts within the South African Police Service that would regularly give him updates on what was happening with the Medicare 24 tender. In fact, he claims the only person he relied on was Brown Mahi.
Apart from misrepresenting to Mr. Madala your relationship with the minister, did you ever suggest to him that you had connections in SAPS itself, as opposed to the ministry, and that those connections could help him?
He believed that I had connections in the SAPS. He believed that.
But you say you didn't have connections.
I had no connections. And
your only insight into SAPS internal operations was what Mr. Mahi relayed to you?
Yes.
Was it you that convinced him that you had connections within SAPS? Was it you that convinced him?
Convinced who? Mr. Madala?
Mr. Madala, yes.
He believed.
I get it, I get it. You've said so. You've said so.
Yes, because when he asked about payments, I would revert and give him information on payments from Brown. Yes, he believed that I had.
Did he come to believe because of what you had said to him, or not really?
To me, it seemed as if he believed.
Yes, you've said that 3 times now. I want to know whether that belief was as a result of what you had said to him.
That's correct, Commissioner.
What had you said to him?
I said to him that I have, like I said previously, I have someone who's connected, and they'll be able to check for us in the system. And I relied on...
somebody within SAPS?
Yeah, but I relied obviously on Mr. Mahi.
All right.
And still on Monday afternoon, the Commission shared that it would be contemplating money laundering charges against Karim. And this is after he transferred 500,000 rand from his account into that of Hangwani Morgan Maumela's sister's bank account, and what appears to have been done to avoid a SARS preservation order that was against Maumela because of his alleged involvement in the Tembisa Hospital scandal. Now, Maumela is a central figure in this particular matter, which saw the murder of whistleblower Babita Diakaran for the looting of over 2 billion rand from that healthcare facility. So Karim took the money from the 1.5 million rand that was paid back by Madala in February and March 2025, and questions were asked about why this had to be done through him and not Madala paying paying Maumela directly.
Now, by this stage, you had been worried for quite some time that you weren't being paid on this contract.
Yes, that's correct.
Why did you agree to take a third of your first payment and give it to Mr. Maumela on behalf of Mr. Madala?
The reason for that, Mr. Madala kept on putting pressure on me to please advance this money to Morgan. I did ask him, why can't he do it directly? He said, please do it on my behalf. And on my next payment, I'll reimburse you. And at that time, we had quite a bit of payments that still needed to go into the system. So I needed to keep Mr. Madala happy. At the same time, knowing that there's more payments coming in, I then agreed to advance this money to Mr. Maumela.
And so I must add that somewhere in between Karim's testimony on Monday, we saw a short cameo from the suspended EMPD Deputy Chief, Julius Mkwanazi, in his sunglasses to deal with some logistical issues. He'll be back at the Commission on the 23rd of March. All right, so let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll reflect on Suleiman Karim's second day at the Commission of Inquiry, where we saw another heated exchange, and I've never seen the chairperson, Mbuyiseli Madlanga, so incensed. I'll tell you why that happened, and then we'll bring in the Legal Practice Council to talk more about the conduct of lawyers and what's expected of them. Don't go anywhere. Thanks for staying tuned to Channel 405 as we continue to bring you a roundup of what took place at the Commission of Inquiry. So on Tuesday, as soon as Chief Evidence Leader Matthew Traskelson began proceedings, he shared how he had come to actually investigate new information where he detected 2 more payments that had been made from another entity belonging to Suleiman Karim, amounting to 2.1 million rand. This money was over and above the initial 10 million rand loan agreement between himself and Madala.
Yesterday in evidence, Mr. Karim told us for the first time that he had had sight of Medicare bank statements over a period in 2024. This was material that should have been put in a statement, which in turn ought to have been furnished Friday, not last week, but the week before. It wasn't put in the statement, which was furnished 5 days late on Wednesday. So we hear this for the first time yesterday. Following from that, I was going through the Medicare bank statements at 5 o'clock this morning, looking to see what SAPS inflows were there to interrogate the version of Mr. Karim in relation to the terms of his loan agreement and the idea that he was going to get 10% of all SAPS inflows, but he had waived all of that. I wanted to see how much money he had waived. While I was looking for that purpose, I stumbled across the fact that there were 2 substantial payments from Tasmika Construction, another company of Mr. Karim, into Medicare 24, which he didn't mention in his statement, and which I would like to ask him about because he certainly should have mentioned them in his statement. The one payment is a payment of 1 million on the 27th of June 2024. The second payment is a payment of 1.12 million on 7 October 2024. There is no innocent explanation for just overlooking the fact that more than 2 million rands beyond what you have disclosed also happened to be paid. The reason that these documents were made available to his legal team today and not earlier was, first of all, he filed his statement late. Second of all, in his statement, he didn't disclose these payments. Third of all, in his statement, he didn't disclose the fact that he was he had sight of the bank transactions on Medicare 24.
And so almost immediately after this, Karim's lawyers asked for time to analyze this new data that had now been presented before the Commission.
I do want to bring a formal application. At about 6 o'clock this morning, my attorney received an email from the Commission's attorney, and the email read, "Our instructions are early this morning, flowing from your client's evidence yesterday, An evidence leader was working through the Medicare 24 Shwani accounts to identify inflows from SAPS in the period over which your client had sight of transaction movements on that account. While looking at these inflows into the Medicare account, the evidence leader identified 2 additional payments to Medicare from your client, which your client has not disclosed. The payments were in an amount of 1 million on 27 June 2024 and an amount of 1.12 on 7 October 2024. Both payments were made from your client's company, Tasmika Construction. Copies of the relevant Medicare and Tasmika Construction bank statements are attached, together with extracts from the spreadsheet of contras for the Medicare account, which was provided by FNB. The evidence leaders intend to canvass these payments with your client this morning. If you require time to consult with your client in this regard, we will approach the Commission to arrange a later start to proceedings.
But Chaskelson came back and said, upon closer inspection, Karim, who is the ANC's treasurer in the Ngaka-Modiri-Molema region, scored over 300 million rands worth of payments from municipalities that fall within his jurisdiction. Now, this region also comprises of 5 ailing local municipalities, including Ditsobotla, which has been placed under administration 9 times since 2008.
Chair, there are 2 separate issues to address here. The first is the hundreds of pages that Mr. Barner is brandishing around, and the second is the bank statements for 4 months of Tasmika Construction and Medicare. Let me deal with the spreadsheet first. We will not refer to a single one of those pages. We've made that clear to Mr. Karim's team. Why we gave it to them is that there is an infographic on page 505 of the bundle that they've had for some time. What we sent them electronically, and the infographics provides a summary of payments from municipalities in the area in respect of which Mr. Karim is the ANC treasurer, to companies owned by Mr. Karim. And it gives a breakdown of where the 336 million or 332 million that these municipalities have paid to Mr. Karim, where it comes from. The infographic provides a summary. We thought that Mr. Karim would want to know where we got the infographic from, so we gave him a spreadsheet with line items of every single transaction reflecting a payment from one of those municipalities to a company of Mr. Karim, with tabs broken up by company. And we made clear to him we're not going to refer to any of those line items. They are totaled, but if he wants to total them himself just to check that our numbers on the infographic are right, he can do that. If he wants to dispute any of those transactions, he can do that.
And so, just as the Commission was contemplating whether or not to actually give Karim's lawyers more time to put together a postponement application, this happened.
If we are not inclined to adjourn so that you should prepare a postponement application, if our inclination is to give you time to consult, what time would you suggest? Mr. Chaskelson has suggested 45 minutes to an hour. What would you suggest?
Chair, I think at least 2 hours, and I'll come back to you if I need more time. But I do want to say, it seems then that you've prejudged an application that
Mr. Barner, I take strong exception to that.
No.
You know, and you are an experienced counsel, you know that people presiding, let me use the court, the example of courts. You know that judges will engage you during argument, engage you to an extent that you will think they are against you, but in the end you are surprised that the judgment is in your favor. Engaging counsel has nothing to do with matters being prejudged, and you know that. I take very strong exception to that attitude.
I don't think...
In fact, I find it unprofessional for you to say that I have prejudged issues purely because I'm engaging you. I take strong exception to that.
I don't think that you should take exception. And what
I do.
Can I respond, Chair? What you put to me was that you weren't going to allow an opportunity for the postponement application.
I did not. I did not say I am not. I never said so. We can play back the tape. We can play back the recording.
Then I was mistaken.
So that is, I can actually, to be rough, I can say you are lying.
No, then I was mistaken. I understood you to say that you were not prepared to allow a stand down for the postponement application to be brought, but you were ready to consider the stand down to deal with the documents. If I was mistaken in that, then I'm mistaken, but that is clearly how I understood it.
You definitely are. I did not. It was an if situation, which arises all the time during argument.
Then I accept that.
Thank you. And you apologize for what you said, because you basically suggested impropriety on my part, that I've prejudged issues whilst the matter is being debated. Are you tendering an apology for that?
Yes, if I misunderstood it, then I tender an apology. But as you say, the record will indicate, and my recollection is that you said, if you are not prepared...
So you are tendering a qualified apology, a conditional apology.
Chair, if I'm
You
mistaken,
are tendering a conditional...
I apologize, but that's not what I heard.
You are saying if the recording can what, so you are tendering a conditional
It's what you
apology.
put to me as well, that the recording will reflect what happens. What's good for you is good for me.
So I'm not accepting the so-called apology. Thank you very much.
Okay, so, I mean, firstly, it's the first time I've seen Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga that incensed ever since the Commission's proceedings began. But let's bring into the conversation now the Legal Practice Council's Gauteng Provincial Director, Ignatius Briel. A very good evening to you, Mr. Briel. I suppose my starting point here is what is considered to be professional and ethical conduct on the part of lawyers, whether they're appearing before a commission of inquiry or in their normal course in the courts?
So, Ziyanda, I think the starting point would be the Code of Conduct of Legal Practitioners. And it's very clear from the code that there's not much of a distinction whether you appear before a tribunal or you appear in court. And there's always a duty of candor to the court or the tribunal. You have a duty not to make reckless or scandalous allegations. You have to show respect to your colleagues and also to the tribunal that you're appearing in front of.
And I mean, both advocates, Bana and Premid, are members of the Johannesburg Bar, and within that, there's a professional and ethics committee. How should they deal with what we saw unfolding? Should perhaps these two advocates self-report? What is the process in dealing with issues such as this one?
So I think the important thing to note is, as the commissioners of the inquiry, they've got the ability to also report any misconduct that they believe needs to be investigated. The Legal Practice Act does provide that the Legal Practice Council can, of own accord, investigate matters that are on the public domain. Whether we would do so in this instance, I will not express an opinion at this stage. I think there's also a requirement to allow the proceedings of the tribunal to proceed without undue hindrance. Besides, the ability of the commissioners to record or to report the conduct to the LPC or the regulatory bodies, the provisions of the Commissions Act also has far-reaching implications where the commissioner can actually impose sanctions where there's a willful attempt to derail the proceedings of the commission. But at this stage, I think it would be prudent to maybe allow the proceedings to continue and let Justice Madlanga then indicate if there's a need for us to further investigate so that we do not impede on what's happening at the commission.
And absolutely, I mean, apologies were offered. And so I suppose my next question is there an obligation on your part as the LPC, or as you've just mentioned, you will give the commission, because it's also empowered to deal with this matter, to do so in the way that they feel is necessary? Because as I've already mentioned, it seems as though after that short adjournment, it was water under the bridge.
No, that's why I'm saying I think it's important to first see how the proceedings progress. It might not be in the best interests of the Commission to try and interfere at this stage. Firstly, I must say, you know, as the director of the province, I do not directly deal with the discipline. We have independent committees who actually sit and consider these matters. But I think it's prudent. Let the committee, or the commission rather, deal with their proceedings, and we will keep on monitoring. As you've said, it seems to have been water under the bridge. It seems to have been an isolated incident, but we will definitely continue monitoring.
All right, Ignatius Briel is the Legal Practice Council's Gauteng Provincial Director, just giving us some information on what conduct is expected of lawyers, regardless of whether or not they're before a commission of inquiry or before the courts. Thank you very much for your time. So when we come back, we will then look back at the testimony of suspended SAPS head of organized crime, Richard Shabiri. He was found to be lying under oath, and I'll tell you why after this. All right, so on Wednesday, a suspended head of organized crime, Richard Shabiri, returned to the witness stand after his testimony had to be paused in order to consider Suleiman Karim's in-camera application. And things got off to an interesting start when Shabiri read out a supplementary affidavit, and in it, he makes some interesting allegations. He raises concerns about how the statement of one officer, Ndlela, appears to have been pre-prepared in order for it to align with other statements, including that of witness A, and for him to only sign off on it, and including how he believes that this was done under the premise that some people would get career promotions if they said adverse things about himself and others before this commission of inquiry.
Sergeant Ndlela informed me that he had been requested to sign that prepared affidavit and witness C that the content were intended to be similar of the affidavit disposed by witness A. I retained that unsigned prepared statement, which is annexed thereto as marked RS 12, because it appeared to demonstrate that the statement had been prepared for him prior to any oath being administered. The existence of the prepared and unsigned affidavit, together with the later appearance of signed affidavit containing materially similar contents, raises a question as to whether statements ultimately placed before the commission may have been prepared in advance and subsequently executed by the deponent.
And so then it was time to get into the relationship between Shabiri and Vusumuzi Cat Madala. So he told us, Shabiri that is, that he met Madala in 2016 through the now late officer Mbilini. They then lost contact and reconnected in 2019. And this is when questions were asked why he never did a background check on Madala, who has convictions dating back as far as 2006.
You said when you went to see Mr. Madala in 2019, you went to his business premises to inquire about a criminal suspect that he was providing VIP services for. Was that not good enough reason that he's providing security to this criminal suspect who's later convicted and serving a long sentence? I mean, wouldn't you want to check on a person like that, firstly, to see if they are reliable, they are not associated with this criminal suspect, and the information they provide to you is not reliable. Won't those things, I mean, you say you are involved in investigation of organized crime. Organized crime is not one person, it's a group of people.
It's a group of people, yes.
So at that stage, why were you not interested in checking whether he's not involved with the very people that you are investigating?
Yeah, his cooperation and how he assisted us, it seems to be a clean person. It depends what were you looking for this person for, even though what we are looking that person for was very, very dangerous.
Exactly, that's my point.
Yes.
And then it emerged that Shabiri and Madala would speak quite often, both on WhatsApp and telephonically, and the pair would link up at least twice a month. And so this is why the Commission believed and found it implausible that the two would not have discussed the 6th of December raid at Madala's home. And you'll recall that Shabiri is also accused of having tipped off Madala about this particular raid, which was also dealing with trying to find the still missing Pretoria businessman Jerry Bushoga.
I had seen his profile this 2025 late when all these things was coming out.
By then, General, that was when everything had come to head and he was getting arrested.
Exactly.
I just mean between 2019 and basically 2025. And no matter how frequently you chatted, no matter what kind of information he gave you, it simply never dawned on you between 2019 and 2025 to do a check on him.
Yes.
Then the issue of how Madala name-dropped Shabiri during another instance where police raided his CAT VIP services later on the 18th of December 24, where firearms inspections was conducted, came up. Now, this happens to be after when Shabiri had received a so-called 70,000 Rand loan from the attempted murder accused in September 2024. Shabiri told the Commission that this money went towards paying repairs on his son's vehicle, which had been involved in an accident that same month. The Commission found it questionable that a person of Shabiri's stature within the South African Police Service was firstly not aware of who Madala is, but what this also meant for victims of Madala's alleged crimes.
Are you prepared to accept that the fact that there's been a money exchange from him to you may well create anxiety about your neutrality when it comes to matters dealing with Mr. Madala? I mean, you've been a beneficiary financially from him. Even if you repaid him, you were in a bind at some point, according to you, and he assisted you. So there is a benefit that you got. So you've been a beneficiary of his generosity. Do you accept sitting there, General? You may not have thought about it then. Sitting there, do you accept that it is a cause for concern to, or it would be a cause of concern to anyone who has a complaint against Mr. Madala to come to you and say, help me? They don't know you. I'm a citizen. I don't know anything about you. All I come to know is you're friends with Mr. Madala, and he gave you money when you had a problem. Are you able to accept that it would be reasonable for me to be concerned that I have an issue, I cannot go to General Shabiri about a complaint against Mr. Madala because they are friends and he's given him financial assistance?
Yeah. I hear you, and yes, other people can take it like that and say, no, we can't go to him if we have something against Madala because Madala once assisted him. But if it was saying I assisted Madala for exchange of something, it will make it worse. It will make it genuine for those people to think like that. But anyhow, I can't think. Everybody will think the way they want to think. But yes, I agree with what you are saying. It put perception to other people.
And even more suspicious for the inquiry was the sequence of events, even when it came to when this money was paid back to Madala. So the loan was received in September 2024. By the time the raid took place at Madala's home in December that year, apparently 20,000 Rand was paid back. But by the 31st of December, still in 2024, after Madala name-dropped Shabiri to other police officers a few days prior, he paid 50,000 Rand.
This payment of 50,000 Rand is made after there have been 2 raids of Mr. Madala's premises. That is on the 6th of December 2024 and on the 18th of December 2024. And then on the 31st of December 2024, you pay the 50,000 Rand. Correct?
Yes.
I want to suggest to you, and I know you'll say I'm wrong, but I just want to say this as a suggestion of inferential reasoning. I suggest to you that once there were these raids, you saw that the police were catching on to Mr. Madala, and you decided that money that had been paid to you, not as a loan, I suggest, you should now suddenly pay back to Mr. Madala, so as to make it look like a loan. What do you say to that?
I'm saying it's incorrect.
And I'll tell you what, lots of discussion around this loan, because when proceedings kicked off on Thursday, just before Advocate Ziyanda Ngcobo could pick up on her leg of the cross-examination, Commission Chairperson Madlanga had a few more questions on this so-called loan topic. So the commissioners then put it to Shabiri that actually, at the time when this loan was made between him and his son, they had an excess of 105,000 Rand between themselves to take care of those vehicle repairs. And Shabiri tried to explain why he would have needed the money because he had other obligations, but this didn't seem to stick with the commissioners.
Yes, I indicated that March was the tombstone. And also on the 20th, I was going, remember that week I was on week, going to Limpopo, where we were doing the Thanksgiving ceremony with my brothers and sisters.
Now you keep piling on, General. You only told us about putting up fences here in Johannesburg, at your residence here in Johannesburg, and also at your residence in Limpopo. That's all you told us. Now suddenly we hear about a tombstone. Now suddenly we also hear about a Thanksgiving function with your siblings. Why is it that now that I'm saying, let me finish. Why is it that you start doing that piling on? Once I say that between you and your son, you actually comfortably had an amount in excess of 105,000 Rand. Why do you keep adding and adding and adding? It appears to me that you are trying by all means to indicate to us that you were really in need of money.
To make matters even worse, the Commission went through Shabiri's bank statements, which also highlighted some luxury purchases at Sandton.
Remember you said in early November 2024, you needed to sell some of your cattle to pay back some of the money to Mr. Madala.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I remember, Commission.
Yes, and you say the proceeds were approximately 20,000 rands?
Yes.
And that's what you paid to Mr. Madala?
Yes.
Yes. We have gone through your bank statements covering the period from September until December 2024. And it appears to us that you did not really need to sell your cattle, because if you go to page 50 of file 4, and I know you know how accounts work, so you'll see that the second entry there, the first one is the balance brought forward. And then the second entry there shows that on the 4th of November 2024, there's a purchase at Gucci Centon for 19,500 rands. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then it reflects, obviously, in your statement on the 6th of November 2024. Do you see that?
Yes.
Yes. And it suggests to us, at least, that you were not in desperate need of cash, and you did not need to sell cattle to pay Mr. Madala, because you had enough funds in your bank accounts to even make these luxury purchases. Do you want to comment?
And then it was time for the Commission to turn its attention to the other allegations Shabiri is facing, which came from 3 investigators, witnesses A, B, and C, about an alleged bribe that the suspended head of organized crime offered in relation to securing the bail for those involved in the Armand Swart murder. Now, Shabiri is said to have told them that there are 3 envelopes for them, the prosecutor, and the magistrate to ensure that the bail is secured for the likes of Katiso, Katie, Molefe.
I'm saying to you, it seems odd to me that you would expressly say to 3 police officers, don't take the bribe. You say you did tell them not to take the bribe. There's no recordal from any of them that you said that. And I want to put this proposition to you. You are saying that now because you are operating in the gray area. We don't have a version from Sergeant Ndlela on this, but certainly witness A and witness B left that meeting very confused about your motives because you were operating in the gray area, because you weren't express about the bribe. You were suggesting to them that there is something available if they were susceptible to it. That is what they understood. And so you are now saying that you say expressly don't take the bribe to take away the gray area, to put yourself on the white side, but you were operating in the gray area, General. That is what they say, and that is why they were confused about what your motives were. On the one hand, you're telling them about the bribe. On the other hand, you're suggesting to them that there must be a threat and risk assessment, and you are also assisting them with trying to fast-track the forensics.
Yeah. I don't know where they are indicating that they insinuate that I wanted them to take the bribe, except where they are indicating that if they don't take the bribe, these people are going to kill them.
Let me take you to it, but finish what you want to say.
Yeah, and again, on top of that, if they are insinuating, they came there, they left there confused. I explained what should happen and what is going to happen. I explained to say, already I told Colonel Mugwen to request for the threat analysis. And then inquiry will be opened to do the investigation on the threat. And then they will get protection.
All right, so let's step off for a bit from Shabiri's testimony and take a look at this, because on Monday, confirmation finally from the presidency that the tenure of this Commission of Inquiry would be extended for at least around 5 months. So a second interim report is due on the president's desk on the 29th of May and the final one at the end of August. But the other aspect of this announcement has raised questions around then what happens to someone like Ziyanda Ngcobo, who's on a leave of absence with his full ministerial perks? So on that note, let's bring in Professor Dirk Kotze, UNISA's professor in the Department of Political Sciences. I mean, this is something that I suppose many South Africans will be asking, and yes, a large part of this commission is looking into allegations made against him, but he's got all his perks.
Yeah, I think it's, on the surface of it, it looks almost unfair. Because there's so much evidence that have been presented already by the Commission. The Commission already submitted a first interim report, the second one. They didn't say much about him as minister. You know, there were not many conclusions that they've presented there. I think, you know, strictly speaking, President Ramaphosa does not have to wait for any of these reports. Yeah. You know, he committed himself right in the beginning to do that. And because also I think what is still outstanding is that the Office of the President must still make their input into this commission. They've said they will do it only right at the end. So that will also, I think, be an informative component of the work of the commission and how it will relate to politicians, because it's not only him, it's also his predecessor, General Beckett Cele, the minister, has also been implicated. Yeah. So although he's not there to be dismissed as a member of cabinet anymore, but he's there as a politician. So I think in that respect, there's quite a number of questions that still must be answered. But whether, in my mind, it's a question of time. It's not about whether it will happen, but only when.
But the issue of time then becomes interesting, Prof, if I were to play devil's advocate, because as we've seen at least this week alone, it seems like the name of Ziyanda Ngcobo was just being thrown around willy-nilly. In other words, until we actually get to the bottom of the allegations, surely, perhaps as a matter of fairness, and perhaps that's one of the considerations of the president, that he still be given his perks and let the commission conclude its work.
Well, that will be the formal argument by President Ramaphosa and the Office of the President. I think from the Commission's point of view, I stand to be corrected, but it might be that he will still be part of the phase 3 of the Commission, of giving his response to everything that has been said to him. And maybe that is what President Ramaphosa is waiting for. But, you know, as I said, when it comes to the position of a minister, it's not about whether you've done something wrong or not. It's about the trust relationship between you and the president. And that's all that really determines whether you are in or out.
So clearly a very close, trusting relationship between the two. But something else that was interesting, Prof, very quickly as we wrap up, is the issue of how someone like Karim, who is an ANC treasurer in the Ngaka Mudiri Mulema region, he's been proven through this commission to have benefited over 300 million rand in contracts where there are alien, municipalities, local municipalities like Ditsobutla. What does this do for the image of a party like the ANC that is already on an electoral decline?
Well, I think this is a very good example of someone who has used his political position as well as being a business person in order to just have a conflict of interest on every level. And I think from an ANC party point of view, they will have to have a very serious look if he can continue as a treasurer in that district. And to what extent it will sort of compromise the party itself, because the fact that he continues means that the party actually condones it. And I think that is the big problem for them.
And I think it's a thread, right, that has continued, Professor Dirk Kotze, on the perception that those who are in positions within the ANC directly benefit from some of the alleged corruption. Professor Dirk Kotze from UNISA's Political Sciences Department, thank you for your time. Well, that's all I have time for this week, and we'll see each other again at the same place at the same time to wrap up what's taking place at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. But for now, it's goodbye. Thank you for watching.